one state to the other. Now with transportation so quick and so easy, they leave countries. You'll lose a lot of money if you do that. That would, and other countries that have done it have lost a lot of people. They lose their wealthy people. That would be bad because the wealthy people pay the tax. Okay?
Sir, how did the talks today go in London? Do you think that the asks from Ukraine and
I think they went well. I mean, you know, we got to get two strong people, two smart people to agree. And as soon as they agree, the killing will stop. But yeah, I think they went well, pretty well.
So Mr. President, we understand that your economic team, many of them are here today, J.D. Vance, has negotiated what's been called a monster trade deal with India, like biggest one ever. Can you share with us what some of the framework of that might be?
You said England.
India.
India?
India.
Oh.
Muslim.
They're not very complicated, these deals. It's about the tariffs. India charges almost more than any other country in the world. And believe it or not, we do very little business with India, other than the fact that I like the Prime Minister very much. He's a friend of mine. He was here 2 weeks ago, as you know. And we stood right outside at a news conference. Unfortunately, the grass was very wet. And it was very hard for people to stand on the grass. They got their shoes all ruined. But other than that, it was a very good news conference. And he's a great guy. But we do very little business. You know why? Because their tariffs are so high. They have among the highest tariffs, higher than China. They have among the highest tariffs in the world. And I understand they're going to reduce those tariffs. But it's really sort of their problem, not ours. We do very, very little purchasing in India because and selling. We do very little selling. I mean, Harley Davidson, I said, how are you doing in India? This is about 6 years ago. They came to lunch as a great American company. They make the motorcycles. And I said, how are you doing in India, as an example? Well, we don't do any business there. Why? Because the tariffs are too high. I said, that's interesting. Well, what are you going to do? He said, well, we're going to build a plant in India. And that's what they did. I don't want that to happen. They were forced to build a plant. Well, essentially what we're doing is the same thing. Remember, there's no tariff when they build their plant here. And everybody wants to build because they don't want to. And the higher the tariffs go, the more likely it is they come in and build a plant. You know, I mean, if it's 25%, that's fine. If it's 50%, you'll get more plants. 75, you get more. At 100, you get more than that. And they're all coming in at numbers that I don't think, Howard, there's ever been numbers like we've seen.
Never.
$7-8 trillion worth in 2 months. Because it took me a month to get started, in all fairness. But in 2 months, we did this. And now we're coming up on 100 days, first 100 days. And I think we're going to be close to $8 trillion. There was never any president that did even a tiny percentage of that. Okay, any other questions?
Sure. What about a deal signed, one of the deals signed by your 100-day mark, and China is saying that you were threatening and blackmailing them into a deal? What would be your response?
Well, I mean, China, look, I have great relationships in China, and with President Xi in particular, but China has been charging us massive tariffs for many years. That's one of the reasons they were able to steal so many of our companies. They took our companies out of America, and they built their plants in China. And one of those things, so now we're reversing it, but at levels that nobody's ever seen before. No, we're going to get along great with China, I have no doubt about it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Keep going. Right out the door that way. Thanks, guys.
Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to just a slightly delayed start of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, Amanda Head, reporting to you from, as you can see, Los Angeles, California. I will, of course, be back in D.C. next week. My co-host, John Solomon, is out on assignment tonight, but he will be returning tomorrow night. Now, a little bit earlier before the show, I caught up with Arizona Congressman and now gubernatorial candidate for the state of Arizona, Congressman Andy Biggs. Check it out. Joining us now, Congressman from the great state of Arizona, as well as now gubernatorial candidate for the Grand Canyon State, friend of our program. He just received President Trump's endorsement for that campaign. Congressman Andy Biggs, thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thanks, Amanda. It's great to be with you.
All right, I got to talk to you about your campaign because I am so excited for the prospect of you leading the state of Arizona. You're just one state over from California, and I feel like if good things are happening in Arizona, maybe by osmosis, it'll help out here in California. But how's the campaign going?
Campaign's going well. Data-wise, there's been 7 independent polls. I haven't paid for any, and I'm ahead of my primary opponent by more than 30 points in every poll. And I'm also the only Republican that is polled ahead of the current Democrat governor. So we feel good about that. And then I've been all over the state working this. And what a great state we have and great people as well. And so we feel the support. The momentum's there, and thrilled to have President Trump's endorsement. He's become a good friend over the years, and grateful for him and all that he's doing for the country, but also grateful that he would see fit to endorse me.
Absolutely. And very deserved, I would add. I want to talk to you about the issue of illegal immigration. Obviously, that hits so home for Arizona being a border state, but I want to talk specifically about these Democrats heading down to El Salvador. I feel like at this rate, there should be a cottage industry within the travel agency industry for Democrats who want to get down there, except that it's the American people who are picking up the tab. Is it just grandstanding on the part of Democrats, or do you think that they are actually going to accomplish something?
Well, it's grandstanding. So let's think about this. The U.S. does not have jurisdiction over that fellow. He was not legally in the country. And Kilmar is down there, and he's in the jurisdiction and custody of El Salvador. He is a legal citizen of El Salvador. And so you can go down and bellyache and whine and complain all you want. But typically, the only way you'd get somebody back like that is through an extradition. So we'd have to begin prosecution of him up here for, I don't know, things like perhaps human smuggling and human trafficking. And if we were prosecuting him on stuff like that, then you might get El Salvador to release him. But President Bukele, who I happen to know personally, and I've been to CCAT, I've seen that prison. I'm one of the few members of Congress who have. President Bukele has said, look, he's our citizen. He is a criminal. He is a gang member. U.S. courts have found him to be a gang member, and they said, we're going to keep him. And so what this is radical left, hard left Democrats saying, we're going to go down and make this our cause celeb, our hill to die on, our political topic of the day, of the week, of the month. And the reality is, in the end, the American people are beginning to say, you guys wouldn't even stand up and applaud a 13-year-old brain cancer survivor.
Right.
That's how much you hated Donald Trump, but you will go down for a domestic abuse, a spousal abuse, potentially human trafficking gang banger, and make that your cause. Shame on you. And the American people are probably not going to put up with that. I can't imagine them putting up with that.
Well, and you line that up with the polling that just came out, 8 days ago from CNN, that 56% of those polled, and you got to know that if CNN is polling them, if they are within that polling sample, then they're not exactly hard right MAGA America First folks. And 56% of them support deporting all illegal aliens in this country. Now, they cited, I think, 11 million. I think there's probably way more than 11 million, but the fact remains that they support deporting everybody. So for making this their hill to die on, I mean, it kind of seems to me like they should continue doing this if they want you guys to hold the majority.
I agree, Amanda. Absolutely right. I still get folks from time to time come say, oh, yeah, but my housekeeper, my gardener, my pool cleaner, they've been here 15 years and they were here illegally, but golly, and the bottom line is the vast majority, not the vast majority, but certainly 56% is pretty substantial for any American issue these days. And 56% said every one of them should be deported, removed from this country. And I think that's really, by and large, the sentiment that's there. And I don't even think that we can process all those people rapidly enough it'll take years to do that. But the bottom line is, you're right. I think most Americans by far think that nobody should be allowed in this country illegally. And if you came in illegally, you should be removed and go to the back of the line, for Pete's sakes, where millions of people around the world are waiting to come and do it the right way because they want to be Americans and they want to respect the rule of law, which is what we used to stand for in America.
Yeah. If you didn't observe due process coming into this country, I don't know why you deserve it on your way out. And frankly, Congressman, when I hear those sob stories about how my so-and-so has been here for 15 years, that actually makes me feel even a little bit more jaded about it, because I think to myself, okay, so for 15 years, this person has had the opportunity to do it the right way and they haven't. So it doesn't endear a ton of sympathy on my part. But I want to move on to something that is very near and dear to your heart, because you proposed this resolution to boot Judge Boasberg. I think it's a perfect solution because it sends a very, very strong message about these activist judges. But tell us about the resolution and the support behind it and where its future is.
So Article 3, Section 1 only grants a federal judge tenure, quote, during good behavior. That's it, close quote, during good behavior. And it's not impeachable. It's not impeachment. We're not dealing with the impeachment. We're not dealing with all of that stuff, which is high crimes, misdemeanors, bribery, or treason. We're talking about somebody who has failed to exercise their very important position judiciously. So here's the way to think of it. There's case law in Anglo-Saxon history which defines that, which includes things like doing radical departures from the law. That's what Judge Boasberg's done. And he's doing it for political purpose. He has a political agenda, and that's why he's doing it. When you do that, you should have recused yourself. You should, if you have a political bias, there are mechanisms in place for judges to say, look, I can't be as impartial as I probably ought to be. I can't have that judicial integrity. Well, if you have integrity, then you step aside and another judge will step in and exercise integrity. He didn't do it. And so we're trying to remove him. And by the way, it doesn't require a supermajority in the Senate. It is a simple majority of House and Senate. And by the way, there are legal scholars that have talked about this and suggested this is a way to remedy a bad judge over the years. And so
when is the
right now
resolution
I'm trying
gonna get a
to gin
vote?
up enough support in the House.
Well, I imagine you're going to have it. So when do you anticipate that vote will come?
I need the Judiciary Committee to allow this to be forwarded. And if they allow it to be forwarded, it will happen soon. But right now, Judiciary, we're doing our next few hearings are going to be dealing with the reconciliation bill and the Judiciary Committee's responsibilities with regard to the reconciliation bill. But by golly, we need that to go forward, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, I want to touch on a little bit of foreign policy. It seems like this administration is growing increasingly more frustrated with the deal, or thus far, non-deal between Russia and Ukraine, and Vice President Vance indicating that if a deal is not met soon, the United States is going to walk away. Is that the best move, to walk away and say, all right, fine, you guys figure it out?
Yeah, I think so. I saw President Trump put out a social media post expressing incredible frustration. And I think those of us who've been viewed this whole thing as a problem for several years now, we share that frustration. And I think that the solution that we're going to need to do is if Zelensky and Putin don't sit down and have real, straightforward, open and transparent negotiations and actually make a move. You can't just sit there talking. I mean, we used to see that in North Korea and Vietnam. They need to make a move. And if they're not going to make a move, it needs to end. And we need to stop our support and step back. And first of all, if NATO countries over there really want to step in and help Ukraine, that's what should happen. But we need to step back and say, this is no longer our problem. We have other issues that we have to deal with in our country, and let's go forward.
Yeah, I think enough time and treasure has been devoted to that conflict, and I'm with you. I think it's time to walk away. If they can't figure it out, then we're out. Congressman Andy Biggs, the Trump-endorsed candidate for Arizona governor. Sir, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back on the other side of these messages. Tell me the truth. How many different beauty potions do you have sitting on your bathroom counter right now? If it's more than just Vibrant Super C Serum, listen up. The ingredients in this one bottle can replace your day creams, your eye creams, your night creams, your neck creams, your wrinkle creams, and your dark spot reducers. It's made in the USA with the highest quality ingredients, including vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, vitamin B5, and vitamin E. Super C Serum delivers noticeable results. Simplify your skincare routine, get a healthier complexion, and minimize wrinkles and age spots with Vibrance. And if you don't find it better than your current skincare routine, you'll get a full refund. So go to Vibrance.com/justnews to save up to 37% off and free shipping. That is Vibrance, Vibriance, Vibrance.com/justnews.
The threat of child online exploitation has never been bigger.
In the 20 years I've been working, I've never seen this many leads come in.
We see that taking different forms, but essentially it's when an adult offender is targeting a juvenile in the online or digital environment with the ultimate goal of some sort of sexual victimization.
People don't know that this crime is happening at such an alarming rate because it is uncomfortable to talk about.
Bringing it to the forefront can help prevent the crime from happening in the first place.
All right, everybody, what you just watched was obviously a very important awareness announcement by Department of Homeland Security against child exploitation, what parents can do to protect them. This is a campaign called No to Protect, and someone who is going to be a part of a live stream that's going to be happening shortly after this show to help get the message out is country music star and friend of the show, John Rich. John, thanks so much for being here.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you so much for partnering with this, because as much as I would like to think that the Department of Homeland Security has enough clout and gusto of its own to get the message out, sometimes it takes a little bit of awareness from someone like you to get the message out. Why did you find this to be so important to get involved in?
Well, because I'm a dad and I have two teenage sons, 13 and 15, and there's already been situations that have happened with kids that I've known since they were small that went to school with my boys that have fallen victim to online cyber predators. And I dug into a little bit further and realized DHS had this whole program, No to Protect, and they have a website and they promote it. But I said, enough people are not seeing that. And so I reached out to DHS on my own, reached out to our local agent here in Tennessee, Dennis Fetting. And I said, listen, we should do a live stream on X and promote it X-wide, like every conservative and liberal, anybody that wants to jump on it, because this is not a political thing. We should have a viral moment with this 60-minute seminar that you guys have put together. And DHS totally agreed. It went all the way to Secretary Noem's desk. He signed off on it. He's actually given the opening address tonight of this live stream. Starts at 7 Central. And really what you're going to hear is not a country singer and a federal agent. You're going to hear two dads talking about how these predators really do come after your kids. What are their tactics? Where are they? What video games are they using? Social media apps and otherwise. And you're going to be astonished as a parent just how subtle these things have gotten. You know, this is not the scary guy in the white van anymore like when I was growing up. This is people acting like they are a kid, lulling your kid to sleep, and then they lower the boom and they come in after them, they extort them, and they sextort them. That's a phrase I've come to know through the DHS, sextortion. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And so tonight, this educational process, I hope, goes a long way in helping parents and young people really guard themselves from becoming victims of these monsters.
Yeah, it is really terrifying. And, you know, there is this common denominator among parents. It's not necessarily John Rich, the country star, or these people who work in Homeland and they see this so intimately, just anybody who is a parent or even people who want to be parents. You said something that piqued my interest, and I think it's probably going to shock me to hear your answer. You mentioned video games. They can use video games?
Yeah, so a kid can be sitting on Minecraft. They can be sitting on Roblox, a little kid playing a fun little game. And because it's connected to the internet, other kids are playing around the world, and they'll link up with other kids and play. Well, you've got predators that will act like they're also a 12-year-old boy, and they'll set up a profile and they will friend your kid and send your kid like free coins, free credits. Hey, I think you're really cool. Here's 1,000 free credits. Let's play again tomorrow. And your kid is going, wow, that's a nice kid. That's really cool. I'm going to friend him. And so then they start talking, and next thing you know, this predator is getting personal information about the kid. This then turns into them profiling the kid, profiling the kid's parents. They start cross-referencing this kid to social media. They'll find where they live, where they go to school, and then they will take AI, and if they can find a picture of this kid, they will take that picture and put AI on that picture and turn it into the most horrendous videos and pictures that you've ever seen. Then send that to the kid and say, if you don't do what I tell you to, I'm going to post this far and wide on the internet, or I'm going to come to your house and kill your family because this is your home address. And they'll type it out. And so now this kid is put into a position he doesn't know what to do. They're a kid. Do I go tell my parents this is happening? Do I do what this man says? Maybe I'll do what the man says because I don't want to tell my parents about this. I don't know if you saw the stat, then you rolled that video in the beginning. 36 million tips came in last year alone. 36 million. That's 3 million a month. There's no agency in the world that can deal with that. No federal agency, local or otherwise. Altogether, it's like throwing a snowball at a mountain. So my thought was, let's do a live stream with DHS, with Agent Fetting, and me, just a dad, and let's tell Americans what's really going on and what to look for so their kids never fall victim to this.
Yeah, I mean, turn parents into the agency workforce for their own kids to protect their own kids. I love that concept. Is it the prevalence of the digital age, of social media, of online gaming, of the ability to look people up online? Is that why this has increased so exponentially?
Yeah, it's made it where they can be invisible. Back in the day, a pedophile, they would be hanging out at the local park, or they would be sneaking around, and you'd go, hey, what's that guy doing over there? And it was really hard for them to operate. But now you've got international websites, especially on the dark web, where these people, they trade information, they trade secrets, tips, how to look out for law enforcement. Hey, here's a new tactic I used that worked on this kid. They'll trade all these secrets around, and it's become an industry for them. And so, you wouldn't let a bad guy in your house. I bet any parent watching right now, if I said, what would you do to keep a predator from coming through your front or back door in the middle of the night to take your kids? You would say, I would do anything. It would not matter. There's no distance I wouldn't go to keep that from happening. Yet on their phones, on their iPads, on their laptops, these predators have full access to them, and it's completely subversive and silent. And the parents don't even know this is happening, because even if the parents have firewalls up and things that protect them from adult content, they're not going on adult content. They're coming in on kid platforms that you think are totally safe. Again, this is what we're going to discuss tonight in great detail. I urge every parent and kid, if you're 6th grade and up, this is age appropriate tonight for 6th graders and older. I urge you, whatever it is you were going to do at 7 Central, 8 Eastern, don't do that. Put that on hold and watch this live stream at John Rich on X.
Absolutely. Do you think that it is overkill to just have a policy as a parent to not post pictures of your kids online? Is that overkill, or is that reasonable?
No, it's not overkill. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things I was shocked about to learn from DHS, is that these predators will go find mom's Facebook page, and they'll pull a picture from her Facebook page of the kid that they're targeting. Then they will filter that through an AI process and create pornographic content, and then use that as leverage and blackmail on the kid that they've targeted. So mom didn't know she was doing anything wrong, because she wasn't. But it's important for us to realize how the enemy is using innocent things that we're doing against us and against our kids.
Yeah. Before I let you go, John, I want to shift over to something else, something that is happening before the Supreme Court right now. These arguments being heard regarding 5 or 6 or so very, very questionable and dangerous books being taught to very young children in Maryland. I was quite surprised to see that Elena Kagan, one of the liberal justices, seems to kind of be erring on the side of sanity when it comes to this. When the decision comes out, it could possibly be 7-2 in favor of parents being able to opt their kids out of this garbage. I mean, I can't imagine the type of person who wants to talk to a 5-year-old about sex. But I have a feeling that the people you're talking about tonight, the exploitation you're talking about tonight, they're related and they might even overlap.
You were drawing an accurate comparison, as astonishing as that is. Here's the answer. Any adult that wants to speak to a 5-year-old about sex is a predator. Mm-hmm. That's it. They are grooming that kid to be victimized at some point in their life. And that's what DHS is going to talk about tonight, that they start as young as they can get them online. That's why they're going after Minecraft and Roblox and these kid games, because they want to get in there early where the kid has no defenses and try to make their move then. So when they're doing it in a school, yeah, there's no difference. When you see people like Randy Weingarten saying that she thinks these books shouldn't be in the school either, we've turned quite a corner in the country. So I hope this does come down to the Supreme Court. They kick them out, because there's a whole list of other books. It's not 6 or 8. It's hundreds of books that are on those same lines.
Yeah, it is disgusting. John, I think that this is an incredible resource for people to learn more about this. Give everybody the details again of this live stream tonight.
You bet. This is tonight, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, and it'll be those time zones in Mountain and Western, at John Rich on X. So if you're on X, which I still call Twitter, go on there, at John Rich, 7 o'clock. We will be live right from Nashville. Me and the head of the Department of Cyber Crimes Against Children from Department of Homeland Security. I hope to see you there.
Awesome. So guys, I mean, if you were intrigued by what you saw in that video, you should be concerned about it. Go check out this live stream. John Rich, what a blessing you are to parents across this country. Thanks so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Coming up, a new report shows just how much political bias, and guess in what direction, is happening over at the IRS.
Hey folks, if you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When's the last time you checked on your home title? I know the answer. That's the legal proof, of course, that you own your house. If you're like me, the answer is never. The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. That's not a good situation. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you're not even going to know about it until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing and find out today if you're already a victim. Use the promo code JTN at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com right now and use the promo code JTN. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code JTN.
Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. A new report has found that the leadership of a major governmental agency has major left-wing bias. And I know what you're saying, Amanda, we already know about the USAID. It ain't the USAID. It is the body that takes your taxes. Yes, the Internal Revenue Service. Some damning information coming out from this report. So to talk about that, I've got the president of the American Accountability Foundation, the group who produced that report, exposing the IRS for some pretty disgusting left-wing bias, Tom Jones. Tom, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to have you here. And, you know, I think everybody looks at the deep state and they think that there probably isn't an agency in Washington that escapes it. But to know the degree to which leadership at the IRS donates to left-wing causes, dig into some of the details of this report for us.
Yeah, I think the most troubling issue is one of the top leaders at the IRS. Now, I want to back up a little bit because your viewers probably remember the scandal from kind of the 2010 timeframe with Lois Lerner, and we had a lot of great exposure on that. There were congressional investigations, and I think a lot of folks, myself included, thought we really cleaned up the mess with targeting conservatives at the IRS. Well, AAF opened up an investigation of the IRS recently, and unfortunately, what we found was that we hadn't, that the number 2 leader in Lois Lerner's team, this woman named Holly Paz, instead of getting fired in 2013 when all the information came out about her and that she had been donating to Democrats and targeting conservatives, instead of firing her and making her move on, what the IRS did is they just kind of put her underground, kept her quiet for a while, and then as the Biden administration supercharged the IRS with the Inflation Reduction Act a few years ago, they got a ton of new agents and they put her in charge of one of the largest divisions auditing Americans, particularly auditing wealthy conservatives. And so now this woman who was number 2 targeting conservatives in 2013 is now in charge of auditing some of the wealthiest Americans, some of the biggest corporations in the country. And it's shocking that she's still at the IRS. So we're really troubled by that. And I think we need to talk about how problematic this is.
So what kind of, I mean, that's disgusting within itself, but I think that there are probably some Americans out there who would like to think, well, everybody's got a little bit of bias, but she wields a lot of power in that position. Tell us how can she so dangerously wield this when it comes to political bias?
Yeah, and you need to go down into the weeds a little bit to understand how problematic it is. She runs something called the Large Business and International Division. Nobody knows what that is. Like, what does that mean? Well, what it is, it's a division at the IRS that audits pass-through entities. And I think your viewers are probably familiar with pass-through entities. If they run a small business, that's where the income from your business passes through onto your personal tax returns, and you pay the income tax as an individual taxpayer. Well, this woman's got the ability to audit pass-through entities across the country. And what it's given her the ability to do is say, look, I'm going to go and start targeting large businesses and targeting individuals who are conservative, who have been putting money into the political system to really back them out, to prevent them from engaging in politics in America, and basically sick the IRS on them so that they can't donate to conservative organizations, so they can't support conservative candidates, and really brings kind of that cadre of thousands of IRS agents. She oversees 4,000 IRS agents, brings that to bear against conservative Americans. It's really troubling. I'm hoping that when the IRS really gets around to getting cleaned out under this administration, that this woman is one of them who goes.
Yeah. So she could effectively shut down an organization or a company, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is, it was troubling when they targeted nonprofits because that's kind of the intellectual lifeblood of the conservative movement. We're a nonprofit organization. So what they said is, hey, we're going to target these nonprofits. We're going to deny them their IRS status. We're going to delay approving it. And what that does is it keeps them from engaging in fundraising. It keeps them from really being vibrant and engaging in the marketplace of ideas. Well, they got called out on that, and that got shut down. So what I think they've really developed is a new innovative proposal. Let's not shut them down on the nonprofit side. Let's shut them down on the fundraising side by saying, okay, we're going to go audit the people that support them. And we're going to, multimillionaires, and we're going to force them to spend hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars to comply with the IRS audit. At the end of the day, a lot of times nothing ends up being found, but what we've learned is the process is the punishment here. The having to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and hours upon hours that could have been put into creative energy is spent complying with the IRS. And I think that's exactly what the IRS is doing here by really supercharging their targeting of conservatives.
Yeah. I mean, boy, oh boy, it's disgusting. And we see this all the time where the process is the punishment. I mean, in no greater or starker example than last year with anybody who was associated with President Trump getting prosecuted and investigated and going through the ringer in their own profession. So one of the statistics that you guys expose, the fact that 60% of people who are in leadership positions at the IRS's commissioner and deputy commissioner's offices, they have either financially or verbally expressed support for liberal causes or politicians. That 60% number, I think that's probably shocking to Americans because you think to yourself, you know, everybody's got to have leanings one way or the other, but 60%, 60 to 40, that's a 20-point break for liberals. Do you think that that is probably the case in most governmental agencies?
Yeah, we do. And look, the 60% number is just the people who've come above ground and come out
Right.
publicly, whether it's through social media or other commentary. I think the number is a lot higher. But look, we've looked at other agencies and we see these numbers across the board. Unfortunately, the federal government attracts liberals. The Washington, D.C. area, the swamp, is overwhelmingly liberal. And what happens is you create a groupthink within these agencies where they're like, yeah, of course we're targeting these conservatives because they're engaging in bad activities, because they don't have anybody else in the building that says, hey, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe this is ideologically partisan and inappropriate. So you get this groupthink, nobody says no, and they plow ahead and really, as you said, weaponize the tools of government against hardworking Americans who are just trying to, run their business, live their lives, send their kids to college, and enjoy their communities. It's troubling, and there's not a lot you can do about it because, look, they bring unlimited budget, unlimited resources, and really the threat of going to jail if you defy them. It's just incredibly inappropriate. It's really problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, is it mass firings that fixes this? How do you fix it?
Yeah, no, 100%. And look, as I mentioned, the woman Holly Paz, look, they seem to have like 35 different commissioners over at the IRS today. The fact that they haven't gotten around to firing Lois Lerner's deputy by this week is really shocking. Like, that should have been the first person to go. But yeah,
Absolutely.
look, the IRS can't bully Americans if they don't have IRS agents to bully Americans with. So look, DOJ needs to step on the gas and they need to fire as many people as they can over the IRS. So this agency can't bully Americans.
Yeah, and they are the chief bullies in the government, maybe save for the DOJ under Joe Biden. But I am so grateful to you, Tom, for exposing all of this. President of the American Accountability Foundation, Tom Jones. Great to see you, my friend. We'll get you back on soon.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Interested in a new way to make yourself more healthy? I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do that after the break. Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. This is the perfect segment to have tonight, this week, while I am in Los Angeles, because I feel like everybody in this city is either using or is looking into using GLP-1s. You know what I'm talking about. You see a celebrity out there who is pleasantly plump, and then all of a sudden, bam, they've lost 50 pounds or something. And that is because of these, oftentimes because of GLP-1s. You can't escape a radio commercial break, a TV commercial break, a magazine without seeing an ad for Ozempic or one of these other drugs. So that leads me to say, all right, it can't be all good. Anything that seems too good to be true, I'm pretty sure it's not. So I've got a lot of questions about this, and I want to know if there is a safer alternative to this for people who want to look or want to lose a few pounds. So I am delighted to bring in the medical director for Brick House Nutrition, Dr. Mike Kim. Dr. Kim, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. So the first time I heard about Ozempic, I think maybe it was Adele or some celebrity out there had lost a ton of weight. And, I suppose if it's a morbid obese situation, which Adele, I think, was far from that, then maybe there is a trade-off. But with a lot of these drugs, we are hearing more and more about bone density issues and some of the other long-term side effects. And maybe we don't even know the long-term side effects. What are your concerns about these drugs, or are they just perfect and healthy and all good?
They made that drug not for weight loss. Right? I mean, the main thing was to help people with their diabetes. And I think over time they've realized that, it does help with one thing, right? We know for sure now when you have your glucose under control, that could help you significantly lose weight, especially if glucose control is a problem. But there's some other things that drug has done that we don't completely know all of the side effects about, but we do know that there are some. And one of those is that you can and potentially lose significant amounts of lean body mass. And I think that that's kind of what we've tried not to, we've tried to create a culture within the company as well as with the products that we create, that this is lifestyle changes, right? So it's about, we've talked about this before, right, Amanda? We're talking about eating right. We're talking about exercising. We're talking about getting up in the morning, changing your sleep schedule. So we created this product Lean. it's formulated to just take advantage of multiple aspects of assisting with weight loss, right? So one is, how do we increase metabolism, right? Basal metabolic rate. We have ingredients for that, including caffeine, Advantra-Z. How do we get better glycemic control? So we have ingredients that help with assisting with how to maintain better glycemic control in a slim. So and then also, we wanted to help with cravings. So how do we had some other ingredients that we added for cravings. And then the last one is, how do we have it where you feel a little bit more full? So it's something very similar to GLP-1s. But I think the catch to this is that with the caveat with GLPs, they can't promote it as purely a weight loss product, but also people don't have the time to tell you that, hey, look, it's actually about lifestyle. And that's what we're doing with Lean, is that we're adding in that it's a lifestyle habit change for yourself, for the future. And if you have kids, it's for the generation after you, right? To teach them that living a healthy lifestyle is so key to a lot of the successes that we see moving into the future.
Yeah, and you guys put out so many incredible products over at Brickhouse Nutrition. I obviously love the Field of Greens. I imagine that is probably one of your most popular products. But when it comes to Lean, is it formulated similar to Field of Greens? Is it a powder? Is it a capsule? How do people use it?
Yeah, so it's a capsule. We do 3 capsules. It's a 30-serving bottle. And based on people, how they tolerate taking capsules, you can take them in the morning, you can take them in the afternoon. Some people don't like taking them on an empty stomach. So we have it in very simple capsulated form in 3 capsules. So you can split that out through the day. And we made it so that it was easy on the stomach as well. We tested this with so many ingredients to make sure that the way that it sits on you, if you were decided that you wanted to take it on an empty stomach, didn't cause you a bunch of cramping or nausea and stuff like that. So we made it pretty simple, and we put together a pretty good product out here that I think people are loving. I mean, when we get the feedback about how we've encouraged them to start, even because there's a bottle of Lean in the cupboard, right? They're thinking about what are they eating in the morning, right? And then go, oh, we're reminded to exercise. Why am I'm spending money on a product that, is now triggering all these other events in their life that is causing them to live a healthier lifestyle. And because of that, that's what we call it the Brickhouse way, is that we're capitalizing on both an ability to, have that so that we can, put it together so that we can make sure that there's a bunch of other things that are being put together that help us live a healthier lifestyle.
Absolutely. And I know you guys have talked about, when it comes to Lean, that this is not necessarily a product for the casual dieter. What does that mean, and why do you say that?
You know what, I think that, a lot of what people do in terms of weight loss is that they want something that's a quick fix, right? So people have been taking these ingredients, GLP-1s, and they just want this, hey, look, I want it to be done in 30 days. I want to lose 50 pounds, right? Something totally unrealistic. And people don't realize that it can't be all fat. That's not possible. So when we put this together, we said, hey, look, if you're willing and you want to make what I consider generational changes in the way that you live your life into a healthier lifestyle, this is the product for you. How are you changing the way that you attack the day? How are you changing the way that you're working? How you're presenting yourself when it comes to meals? How you're spending money on food outside to cooking home meals? So all of this is a very significant, what I would consider a very significant lifestyle change. And that's why we say it's not for the kind of casual dieter, because there's a commitment that you're going to make to yourself as well as to the future that's out there for you.
Of course. I remember back in maybe the 90s or so, there were a lot of weight loss drugs that hit the market, and a lot of them were yanked from the market because they had, was it ephedrine in it? That ended up getting banned because there was this jittery aspect to it. Do you get the jitters with Lean?
We put together, we usually you don't, because the amount of caffeine that we put in there is probably about the equivalent to just a little bit over a cup of coffee. So we made it so that we didn't put a ton of caffeine in this product. It doesn't cause a lot of jitters. The ephedrine component of that definitely caused you a lot of jitters, but a lot of these ingredients are products that come out for weight loss to increase the basal metabolic rate. A lot of the studies have been based off of, say, caffeine. So a lot of that push is initially there's a large dose of caffeine, and imagine taking 200 milligrams or, what we would consider 16 to 20 ounces of coffee immediately and having it hit your stomach. So that's the reason why a lot of people do get the jitters and a crash. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible product. You guys go look at their website, look at the testimonials, the people who have talking about how successful it has been for them. Dr. Mike Kim, thank you so much for being here. And everybody go over to, same to you. All right, takelean.com, use the promo code JUSTNEWS20, and you're going to get 20% off. And let me just say, try it out And maybe that will be the ball that gets you rolling, moving in the direction of more exercise, eating cleaner. And this is a product that is so much safer than trying out those GLP-1s. So everybody go head over to takelean.com, use the promo code JustNews20. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. One more segment after. Welcome back, everybody. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent spoke yesterday about the ongoing tariff situation with China. It has become quite the standoff, and he characterized it as unsustainable. He also expressed hope for a de-escalation soon, but who knows what is going to happen. It's kind of the wild card situation among all of these tariffs with other nations. So I am delighted to bring in to talk about that and much more the president of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Pete, great to see you.
Always a pleasure.
All right. I know Scott Bessent wants to look at the sunny side of things and say maybe there will be a de-escalation soon, maybe there will be a deal soon. What do you anticipate is going to happen?
Well, I think the reaction of markets to Secretary Bessent's pronouncements should be a guide for President Trump. We were in very, very deep trouble barely 2 weeks ago. The Secretary, along with the Secretary of Commerce Lutnick, were basically warning the president, don't just look at the stock markets, look at how the bond markets were reacting to all of the turmoil over tariffs. That was the indicator showing that people were losing confidence over the long term in the credit worthiness and investment worthiness of the United States. So Secretary Bessent is giving good advice now by saying, look, this is not a sustainable situation. Nobody wins a trade war. And maybe what we need here is to start pulling back, looking toward a truce. And President Trump has begun saying, yeah, maybe we need to cut down on that 147% maximum tariff rate on certain Chinese goods. That's a good idea because tariffs, after all, are just taxes on imports passed along to all of us. Sure, we can absorb that for a while, but the main point that the secretary has made is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. I love the work that you do because you represent people like me and everyone watching the show, American taxpayers. And I know a lot of people look at the notion of an ERS, an external revenue service, and we all have those kind of cartoon stars in our eyes when we see something like that, to bring in revenue from tariffs. But how feasible is it?
Well, to replace the federal personal income tax, probably not. I mean, you'd have to do three things. You'd have to decide whether tariffs are going to raise a lot of money or keep a lot of goods out of the United States. They can't really do both at once. If the administration says, yeah, let's raise a lot of money from tariffs, they're going to have to bring them way down from where they are now so that goods keep flowing into the country to be tariffed. Once you decide on that, you've got to figure out how much of the income tax you can replace. We'd probably still have a trillion and a half of revenue that we would need to replace even with tariffs coming in. So that would mean a certain level of spending reduction over time. I don't know how Congress is going to feel about that. You'd also have to repeal the 16th Amendment to the Constitution and shut the door on an income tax. So that's a lot to do. It can be done, but it would take an all-hands-on-deck commitment here in D.C.
Yeah, that would absolutely be ambitious. Before I let you go, tax season, a lot of people have filed extensions like me. When it comes to the Trump tax cuts, though, if those do not become permanent, exactly how much of an increase are most Americans looking at?
A median income household will see a 22% increase in their taxes, upwards of $1,800. If you happen to have 2 or 3 kids, it's going to be a lot more than that. The child tax credit will be cut in half. That's a $1,000 tax hike per kid. If you have a small business with $20,000 worth of profit, you're paying $4,000 in taxes on that now. You'll pay $5,000. $1,000 tax increase. It needs to be avoided. A recent poll we commissioned by President Trump's own pollster, Tony Fabrizio, showed 91% of Republicans want Congress and the president to act quickly on preventing a tax increase and extending that tax relief. Democrats, well, they opposed it, but by a surprisingly smaller margin, only about 20 points. Independents are in favor, well in favor of extending them. That means
Congress.
there is a growing consensus. We need to do something here and
Get
fast.
it done, Congress. Get it done. President of National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Pete, it was wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for all of that eye-opening information. All right, everybody, that's it for us tonight, but I'll be back here tomorrow night.